They always called him a nobody, the kid who got shoved, mocked, and written off. Ki-ju Lee had no pedigree, no advantages, only a stubborn heartbeat, and the memory of an awkward moment when a girl named Soman handed his phone back in high school. Her father owned the small boxing gym where Ki-ju stumbled in and, against all odds, was invited to stay. The coach saw something no one else did. Humiliation became the first strike of his training. An injured right hand and a cast didn't stop him. They forced him to build a new weapon, a devastating left, modeled after the legend Thomas Burns, and perfected through brutal drills no one watched. Timing that turned a tiny opening into a fight-ending blow. Every practice, every pain, reshaped the boy who had been mocked into a fighter who could not be ignored. The uppercut that should have ended him became the moment he turned the fight. A knockout that silenced the jeers, lit Soman's stunned gaze, and announced the arrival of a new contender. From locker room doubts to ringside glory, Ki-ju's story is simple. Ridiculed yesterday, championed tomorrow, forged by practice, driven by the one person who believed he could be more.
A historic showdown unfolds as two highly skilled boxers step into the ring, both renowned for their advanced techniques. In one corner stood an Asian man reminiscent of the legendary Muhammad Ali. In the opposite corner stood Mike Tyson, his hair noticeably longer than usual. Ki-ju Lee, the main character, struggled to catch his breath. He launches a swift double jab toward his opponent. After a rapid exchange of actions, he struggled to connect any of his attacks with his opponent. He answers back by delivering a sharp blow to his opponent's ribs. Afterward, a quick combination landed, striking twice in succession. The phrase "combo that" could be rewritten in third-person narration as, "They thought about combining those moves." He completely surpasses him. Jungjin delivers the final strike, ending the confrontation, obliterating there. The boy remains on the ground until he finally finishes. The audience erupted in applause. Ki-ju's gaze. The character began to wander, in search of Soman. His girlfriend silently hopes for his victory, her hands clasped in earnest prayer. He summoned the fighting spirit of a determined boxer, drawing inspiration from Rocky Balboa. Ki-ju's mind drifts back to the moment when everything began. He first encountered Soman in high school when she handed his phone back to him. Without hesitation, they found themselves captivated by the rebellious girl. The moment brought back memories of what he had gone through. He recalled what had happened to him at the school he attended before. Little bro endured constant mistreatment and was regarded as worthless by those around him. The gang leader treated him like a worthless messenger, making him run errands nobody else wanted to do. Ki-ju endured harsh treatment, even facing false accusations that he had been looking at a girl's legs. Angered, the leader unleashed his frustration onto the other person. Without reason or mercy, someone manipulated his body as if it were a mere plaything. The abuse persisted day after day until everything changed one day. Ki-ju unexpectedly uncovers something that would alter the course of his life. Every one of these individuals was in a relationship. He had no attractive girlfriend by his side, which set him apart from the few people in this world who weren't considered losers, those who actually had girlfriends. With the unwavering support of his own unthinking confidence, he drew upon a wellspring of foolish determination. The man made up his mind to enroll at a different school. His main goal was to find a girlfriend. When Soman passed the phone to him, he believed that his dream was at last within his reach. Without hesitation, he falters, unsure of how to handle his emotions. He loudly confessed his feelings, asking Soman to be his girlfriend. Sadly, she found herself unable to do it. He was completely unable to hear him. Whenever she longed to hear him say those words again, he found himself unable to do it. He hesitated, anxiety flickering in his eyes as he trailed after her from a distance, moving in a way that might have seemed unsettling. A helpful reminder advised against attempting such an action. Without explaining the source of their knowledge, the speaker kept the details to themselves. He trails behind her, not stopping until she reaches her home. At a certain moment, someone began to yell. She glared at him, clearly disgusted by his unsettling behavior. He acted with the anxious eagerness of someone desperate to please. He once more admits how he truly feels. He found himself in even worse shape after she struck him hard across the face. The man instinctively deflected the attack without thinking. Instead, an unexpected blow landed hard, catching them off guard and leaving them reeling. His entire body trembled while his thoughts sped frantically in search of a solution. She lightly taps him on the forehead with her finger. They insulted him, labeling him as nothing more than a pathetic loser. She felt a deep dislike for people who acted the way he did. They had mentioned that the only possible rejection she might face would be a simple refusal. Salman entered the building. The place looked like it was set up for boxing training. It was revealed that her father was actually the owner. Upon encountering him, she approaches and ascends. At the same time, Salman's father pulls out a cigarette and sets it aflame. He shifted his attention toward the young boy standing before him. Previously, he had witnessed the way it happened. He managed to stop Salman's punch, which showed that he had some potential. He approaches the child. He believed he was about to be punished once again by the father of the girl he liked. He reached out and placed a firm hand on the other person's shoulder. Director Hio wonders aloud whether the idea of pursuing a future as a boxer had never crossed the kid's mind before. To sum things up, That was the moment he became a member of the boxing gym. Salman made his way back to the. She had searched the gym, only to discover that he was here. At the same time, the boy found himself far too distracted to focus. She found herself unable to focus, captivated by the many intriguing aspects of the girl's character. His enthusiasm for boxing instantly surges to new heights because of this. She observed the girl training with impressive confidence and skill. The desire to excel drove him to perfect his boxing skills, making it the most important sport in his life. His journey of learning inside the boxing ring started from that moment. Soman turned to her father, seeking his thoughts on Kiju's abilities. No one expected things to progress this quickly. He considered this the perfect result for a day he eagerly anticipated. The following scene shifts to a classroom setting. A French fry, already circumcised, made his entrance accompanied by his. The group set out with the goal of eliminating violence within their school. Salman openly expressed his disbelief, making it clear that he did not trust the reasons they had given. Upon catching the sound of her quiet laughter, Kyung-tae approached her directly, challenging her with determined eyes. She behaved as if no words had left her lips. He raised his hand, clearly ready to strike her, but something suddenly made him stop. He begins to reflect on the decisions he has made. The result showed great wisdom. Rather than offering support, he criticizes her harshly. She was often seen as a pitiable soul because her life revolved around caring for a father who could not care for himself. His remarks ignite a surge of anger within her. He goes so far as to take hold of her drink as well. The liquid pours down over her head, covering her completely. Perhaps this belonged to the author. There seemed to be an unspoken reason for displaying everyone's best sides, though no one openly admitted it. Salman stood up, carefully guiding her movements. Without warning, the boy intervened on her behalf, stepping forward to face the bullies and challenging them about their aggressive behavior. The character known for their mushroom-shaped hair took a step forward. In an attempt to unnerve Kiju, someone moved closer to him. Despite his reluctance to cause trouble during class, he refused to let Salman be embarrassed, showing no sign of fear in the face of the situation. She remains puzzled, unable to grasp the reason behind the man's unexpected wink directed at her. He behaved as though he were an awkward hero fighting for her beliefs. French Fry lunged forward and aimed a punch at the boy. Kiju positioned himself carefully, his sharp eyes noticing the flaws in how his opponent moved. At first, he manages to block a quick jab aimed directly at his face. The punk stood frozen in shock. There was nothing more to do but move on to the next part. He shifts his hips from side to side. She throws a well-aimed punch, determined to bring him down. The boy with the pumpkin-colored blonde hair acted like he was someone important. The boy brought him down a notch by halting a punch mere inches from his face. Kiju carefully delivered another quick punch, maintaining a steady rhythm in his movements. He attacked his target with force. The boy's throw was even less accurate than a beginner's shot in Valorant, and to make matters worse, he not only missed his target but also managed to injure his own fist in the process. The intensity of the pain became too much for them to bear. Kiju wondered whether he had injured his hand. The villain remained completely unimpressed, unfazed by his attempt to act cool, which only made his effort seem pointless. Unexpectedly, several students in the class began to cheer him on, their excitement building around him. The students started to see him as some kind of ruthless fighter after he broke the locker so violently. Rumors even spread that Kyung-tae's head had shattered from the blow. It seemed that pretending to be tough was actually paying off, since now the whole class believed he had held back on purpose against the blonde troublemaker. Despite his calm exterior, Dude fumed inside over failing to land his punch. Having recently started his sandbag boxing lessons, he still struggled to aim accurately, like most beginners. Kiju's hand throbbed with intense, fiery pain. Despite feeling uneasy, he managed to maintain a calm expression in front of the troublemaker, all in an effort to look cool in front of the girl. Kyung-tae feels a surge of fear in the man's presence and quickly finds an excuse to leave, claiming he needs to go to his grandfather's memorial service. As the blonde student with the bowl cut left the classroom, a friend intercepted him, mocking his excuse and pointing out that the memorial table hadn't even been arranged yet. In response, Kyung-tae snapped at his friend, demanding silence. Fear gripped him so tightly that it felt as if his stomach had leaped into his throat. Meanwhile, the boy continued to hold his pose, unmoving, which left his classmates puzzled about his reasons for standing there so long. They began to believe he was so powerful that his fist had become lodged in the locker. At that moment, Kiju struggled to keep himself from shouting as loudly as he could. The presence of Soman kept him composed, since he felt the need to maintain his calm appearance in front of her. He glanced at his classmates with a confident grin, proposing that they should all get to know each other and become friends. No one in the classroom made a sound after the question was asked. Not long after the intense, but modestly funded boxing match, the students excitedly discussed Kiju's impressive win against Kyung-tae. The main topic of their conversation was the powerful blow Kiju had delivered to the locker. The students began to speculate whether the new student had been a prominent figure at his last school. Several people had seen him leaving the boxing gym, which only increased his reputation, since most assumed he was an elite boxer as well. Whispers about his impressive sports skills began to circulate among the students. Soon, conversations throughout the school centered on him. The students referred to him as Mr. Flip-Flops, implying that he always advanced ahead of others and left an impact as he went. The presence of his authority caused everyone to grow tense and anxious. Kiju notices the student's presence. People around him have begun to regard him with newfound respect. He was thoroughly enjoying the experience. Standing at the front was the strikingly handsome Soman, the person he secretly adored. The boy sprinted forward with determination, eager to seize another chance. Rumors about his boxing skills had already gone to his head, making him so confident that he believed there was no longer any need to introduce himself to others. The setting shifted once again to the school's infirmary room. The doctor advises that the boy should keep his cast on and continue to be careful not to hurt himself again, even once the cast is removed. He lets the child know that having a partial cast will not interfere with attending school. Kiju's boxing practice would have to be postponed for a while because his hand was now so swollen. As someone drapes something over him, he finds himself questioning the reason he even decided to hit the locker in the first place. Looking back on the experience now, he became aware that his feelings had taken control, causing his body to tense up and making it difficult for him to keep his balance amid the rush of emotions. His shoulder turned into a vulnerable spot, and with everything combined, his accuracy suffered greatly, causing his shots to miss by a wide margin. Despite the uncertainty, a sense of awe began to grow within Kiju. As an aspiring boxer, he couldn't help but marvel and ask himself if this was what a real sparring match felt like. Although he feels eager, he believes he isn't quite prepared to engage in a real battle yet. As the story continued, the following scene unfolded. They found themselves at Coach Miyagi's house. His true name was something else entirely. The coach's anger flared when he realized the boy planned to skip a whole month of training due to his injury, making it clear how crucial every moment was. Kiju, still inexperienced and innocent, found himself completely confused by his master's words. The coach clutched his hair, clearly overwhelmed by stress. He was buried under a mountain of debt and struggling to keep up with payments for his gym. Kiju stands frozen, unable to process what he has just heard. Without warning, the master's attitude shifts, suggesting that it would be a shame to let the boy's remarkable abilities go unused at this point. He goes on to mention that Kiju still has a match ahead that he needs to compete in. The boy hung his head in disappointment, troubled by the loss of his right hand. He wondered how he would ever manage to defeat his rivals now. The elderly uncle realizes that he is not winning the discussion. Without warning, Soman's voice cut through the conversation, drawing everyone's focus to him. She believes the child falls far short of Thomas Burns or anyone of a similar caliber. He struggled even to produce a quick jab from the strike. Hearing about Thomas Burns and the technique called the flicker jab captured Kiju's interest. As the coach snapped his fingers, his actions drew everyone's attention. It was as though a sudden thought struck him. The elderly man was convinced that this was precisely their intended course of action. He believes this moment offers Kiju the perfect chance to demonstrate his overwhelming power, relying solely on his left hand. The story shifted focus to Thomas Burns, a man revered in the boxing world. He had gained fame by dominating 5 different championship divisions, ranging from welterweight up to light heavyweight. His reputation was built on his powerful straight jab, which many believed could end a match with a single blow. However, his greatest advantage came from a special move he had mastered during Sukuna's high-end era, the supreme flicker jab. The coach abruptly becomes convinced that the boy has the same remarkable talent as Thomas Burns. He is fully convinced that he has the ability to turn Kiju's left jab into a powerful and formidable weapon. Master Oogway seemed to believe that with just a swing of his left fist, the young man could take down a crowd of opponents. The kid finds himself captivated by the concept of a flicker jab. He came to understand that the boxing world offered multiple paths to gaining strength. With resolve, they decided to try. Kiju announces his determination to put forth his best effort. Starting that day, Kiju underwent intense training focused solely on improving his left jab. He pounded the sandbag with determination. Afterwards, they struck the trees forcefully. He even began attacking the waterfall with his fists, acting as if he had lost all sense of reason. He went above and beyond his coach's instructions, taking on tasks that hadn't been assigned to him. For example, she would find herself facing a steaming pot of boiling water, unflinching. He plunged his hand forward, prompting Shifu to believe that Bro had completely lost his senses by now. Over the past 2 decades managing the gym, he had encountered countless trainees during his tenure. Despite being part of the group, Kiju stood out as the one with the least impressive abilities. Despite his efforts, it was clear he wouldn't come out on top. Still, there was at least one positive thing to consider. The elderly man considered him a valuable way to earn easy money, so he agreed to take on the responsibility of training him. The boy's enthusiasm for the sport stood out as his sole admirable trait. Once Kiju finished his training session, he glances down at his cast, examining it closely. He slips it into his pocket. He kept his vulnerabilities hidden from everyone around him. They decided to head over and find out what was going on at his school. Kyung-tae's followers began mocking him relentlessly. The other day, they had backed down when faced with the new student. Mushroom Hair Blonde could hardly believe the boldness his subordinate had just displayed. He lets his boss know that his grandfather is still living. Mushroom Head reaches out and takes it. Taking the words personally, he seizes the other boy by the collar, his fist poised to strike as punishment for the outburst. Fatty steps in to separate the fighters, fulfilling his duties and bringing the conflict to a halt. Kyung-tae's companion continued to taunt him, accusing him of lacking courage. The blonde troublemaker, frustrated, lashed out by kicking the can across the ground. He stormed off, frustrated that the new student had damaged his reputation. Fatty believes that the chaos from the previous day happened purely by chance. The other child also believed that Kiju had made an honest error. In truth, nobody had ever witnessed the new student in action during a real fight. The group continued to argue quietly, all the while glancing nervously at Kyung-tae, who stood just a short distance away, close enough to overhear every word. He truly is able to hear every sound around him. He became aware of the situation and raised his voice at the group, upset that they were mocking him. Kyung-tae's friends found themselves speculating about the next outrageous scheme he might come up with. Taking out a razor blade, he embarks on his quest, determined to carry out an actual stabbing. Fatty looked toward Wang Yo, seeking his advice and pointing out that Kyung-tae had lost his sanity. Resisting the urge to fall into stereotypes became nearly impossible at the sight of Wang Yu's eyes, which were almost completely hidden behind strips of tape. Despite his unusual appearance and his obsession with cats, he managed to hold the position of the most influential second-year student. At the same time, Kyung-tae, filled with anger, storms down the hallway. The door burst open with a loud smack as someone entered Kiju's classroom. The older brother had stopped caring completely, showing no concern, while Somin felt utterly drained just watching the troublemaker's antics. The boy showed no concern at all, choosing to blast Kendrick Lamar's music simply to irritate those who disliked him. Kyung-tae focuses intently on the person he has chosen to pursue. Despite trembling with fear, the character gripped the blade tightly. With reckless abandon, this impulsive fool charges in to attack, choosing a victim even though a crowd of onlookers is watching every move. Somin becomes aware of his impending actions. The rest of the class feels the same way. Kyung-tae sprang forward, reaching out in an attempt to grab the object. Glory and Slash stood nearby while their companion, still engrossed in the rhythm of fire beats, paid little attention to anything else. Despite his appearance, the overweight boy suddenly displayed incredible speed, dashing away so quickly it seemed as if he had vanished into thin air. In some way, she managed to take hold of him and Kyung-tae was halted before he had the chance to take any action. For the first time in a manhwa, a supporting character managed to play an important role. The blade soared upward, spinning through the air. In an unexpectedly comical turn, the object came to rest directly on the boy's right hand. Kiju's peers in class are overcome with fear as the punks suddenly understood the depth of the trouble they were in. The boy remained completely calm, even as the blade sliced through his sleeve. Instead of fear or pain, only a puzzled look crossed his face. The explanation was straightforward. The cast had been his savior. Without suffering so much as a scratch, he effortlessly removes it with a nonchalant motion. His classmates stared in disbelief as he calmly withdrew the blade from his arm, showing no sign of pain. Not a drop of blood was shed by him, leaving everyone doubting how strong his body must be. Kiju towers above, his presence casting an eerie and unsettling shadow. Kyung-tae appeared unnerved by the menacing presence before him. The rest of the group was included as well. Moving with caution, he approaches the wrongdoer, uncertain of what might unfold next. Batty Summon realizes that he might get tangled up in an actual crime, so she makes an effort to hold him back. The boy makes his move, determinedly pushing forward to score. The blade hovered dangerously close to Kyung-tae's face, poised to deliver a potentially fatal blow. Startled and showing clear signs of fear, the troublemaker quickly raised his hands, surrendering without a fight. Despite the anticipation, there is no change. Kiju happily handed the tool back to him, his face bright with a cheerful smile, as if nothing unusual had occurred. Big Mac Attack and French Fry appeared completely confused. Kyung-tae's companion quickly offers an apology for him, hoping to escape the awkward moment unharmed. And indeed, making it out in one piece is a genuine relief. Kiju, maintaining a composed demeanor, advises the group to exercise more caution in the future. Soman was at last able to relax, showing little concern for the boy's well-being. Meanwhile, she worried about risking her father's sole means of earning money, the most amusing aspect of the whole situation. The troublemakers read Kiju's look as a clear warning, sensing mockery and a threat that they should leave before he unleashed his anger on them. Once class had ended, the students' voices filled the hallway as their conversations carried on. The boy gazes up at a boxing poster. He questioned whether this moment was the destined occurrence the director had mentioned to him. The regional sports championship unfolded with excitement and anticipation. A grin spreads over his lips. Kiju already pictured himself becoming the Muhammad Ali of Asia. He claimed the world championship belt as crowds cheered and celebrated his name. He carried himself as if the other boxers were merely ordinary, believing his skills matched those of Thomas Burns. Kiju believes that earning the regional championship would make him highly respected by all his classmates. Unexpectedly, a cat wandered over and startled the boy. The small, adorable creature was lifted gently, and it instantly made it clear that it wanted to be petted. Kiju nestled close to her, expressing affection through gentle cuddles. Viewers were encouraged to tap the like button if they wanted to share their fondness for the adorable cat. The cat's owner gently calls out to her, hoping to get the feline's attention. The same narrow-eyed oddity that had appeared earlier was standing there once again. Kiju comes to understand that the small, furry creature already belongs to someone else. To his surprise, the cat bares its teeth and growls at him. The object suddenly springs from his grasp. The character made a quick dash toward the stairwell, uncertain if the others shared the same impulse. Doubt crept in as suspicion grew that this troublemaker might not be responsible enough for a pet. Wang Yu remained unfazed by her response, confident that she would return before long. Meanwhile, confusion lingered about why an adult man was present in a high school setting. Wang Yu's attention was fixed on the very same boxing poster, before turning to glare at the boy with a cold, judgmental expression. He folded his hands together. Someone wondered if he was just about to get down on one knee and propose. Kiju grew increasingly anxious as the man continued to ignore any sense of personal boundaries. Wang Yu walked by him in silence, not saying a word. The person with a face resembling a PDF file felt a surge of excitement as they anticipated the upcoming competition. Kiju begins to wonder whether he has already attracted an enthusiastic admirer. The story continued with the following scene. The coach shouted angrily at the boy, furious that he would even consider joining a boxing tournament. The protagonist, known for his lack of cunning, already felt certain that triumph was his. The sight left his coach trembling with fright. He notices that the kid's attitude has changed, growing more conceited simply because of 3 months of training. It was obvious to everyone that, unless something changed, he stood no chance of winning the championship and would be completely outmatched. If Kiju decided to leave, the burden of this man's debts would completely ruin him. Sensei Egghead, driven by the influence of mounting loans, felt forced to intervene and prevent him from entering the championship. Kiju displayed a smug grin, exuding the confidence often seen in protagonists. He recalled to his cherished coach that he still relied on the dependable flicker jab he learned from Thomas Burns. The doctors expected his cast to be removed in a few weeks, reassuring everyone that he would recover without any issues. The coach decides to try a new strategy. With exaggerated enthusiasm, someone insisted that the boy was destined for far greater things, claiming that even winning the championship was nothing compared to his extraordinary abilities. This was flattery taken to an extreme level. He likened the scenario to a famous soccer star, like Ronaldo, joining a team of young amateur players. The oblivious main character accepts the reasoning without question, believing it to be completely believable. The coach firmly insists that a high school student has no place getting involved in minor disputes meant for younger children. Meanwhile, the boy feels his excitement building as he looks forward to a challenge, and with a modest attitude, he decides to join the boxing competition. A shiver, sharp as thunder, races along the elderly man's back, warning him that events are spiraling beyond his grasp. If the teacher failed to intervene, Kiju would be knocked out in the very first round. Despite his efforts, he realized he could no longer persuade the other person. Allowing him to enjoy himself seemed like the most reasonable option left. The coach introduced a carefully organized training schedule, aiming to get him ready for the approaching championships. Kiju feels excited and shares the director's perspective. The initial challenge he faces during his training involves completing 30,000 jumps with a rope. The remainder of the training session passes by without further mention. 4 weeks later, 2 individuals enter the gym, searching for the director. The boy requests that they explain why they are there. The character discovers that the visitors are from the Kao Sung Boxing Club and that their purpose is to find Director Hyo. Kiju nonchalantly mentioned that his master had temporarily withdrawn from business. The other man looked startled, caught off guard by the unexpected news. In truth, he had traveled here specifically to take part in the championships that were about to begin. The student expressed a desire to challenge another member of the boxing club to a sparring match. Based on what could be seen, the director was missing, and none of his students were present either. Rather than taking on the challenge himself, he asked Kiju to try sparring with his student. The suggestion of a sparring match catches the boy off guard. He never expected that he would actually be there. Kiju found himself unexpectedly thrust into a battle, hardly given a moment to prepare. Now that he stood inside the ring, determination filled him as he decided to put his true abilities to the test. The battle commences. He tries hard to keep his feelings in check, choosing not to let them take over. Standing before him was a typical person, an inexperienced individual who blended in with the crowd. Kiju felt completely safe, with nothing to worry about. His opponent sprang forward, initiating the first attack. He manages to block the initial punch by positioning his guard effectively, surprising everyone with his quick reflexes. This left him vulnerable to an attack from the other hand. Kiju's life came to an abrupt and unexpected end. He executed his punch flawlessly. He becomes overly enthusiastic, proudly celebrating his recent actions. Bro, having found an opportunity, prepared to throw his initial punch at any second. Suddenly, without any warning, a punch lands directly on his face. A powerful force swept over him, leaving him completely stunned. The rival team's coach encourages him to take charge of the attack. For the first time, Kiju found pleasure in the sensation of being struck. His adversary charged forward, launching yet another aggressive thrust. The boy raised his defenses, preparing himself for what might come next. He struggled to defend himself as a relentless stream of jabs landed against him. He couldn't spot a suitable opportunity. The moment brings to mind the rigorous training session led by director Hio. Someone mentioned that there was an opening available. Each time a punch is drawn back or delivered, the person's vulnerability becomes apparent. They were searching for an opportunity to take advantage of the opening. Kiju notices a gap appear. He launched his initial punch with his left fist. He landed a flawless blow, striking his opponent's face with precision and force. Believing the battle had already been decided, the character assumed it was finished. The young fighter took charge of the attack, utilizing his skilled flicker jab. With impressive accuracy, he controlled each movement of his. The other director watched with admiration as Flicker delivered a quick, skillful jab. As his adversary is forcefully slammed against the corner, the impact is both fierce and unforgiving. Kiju prepared to launch his counterattack, but at that very instant, his opponent reacted in perfect sync. Their fists swung forward at the same moment, meeting in midair as each tried to land a blow on the other. The boy escapes with just a minor scrape, but the rival takes a direct hit to the face, leaving them reeling from the blow. He lost his balance for a brief moment. Kiju scored another precise strike. He basked in the satisfaction of being recognized as the new incarnation of Thomas Burns. His growing self-assurance began to cloud his judgment, making him believe more and more that victory in this battle was already his. The setting shifts to Sensei, who imagines his head as a runway. He feels relieved and grateful, knowing he managed to pay his debts because of the help from a particular student. A sudden memory of the Chil-sung boxing gym flashes through his mind, prompting him to scan his surroundings in search of it. The elderly man made up his mind to visit the gym and have some coffee, so he strolled all the way there. Upon entering, he notices that numerous students are energetically practicing their sparring skills with one another. He felt let down, noticing that his surroundings lacked the lively energy others enjoyed, especially since the gym always seemed crowded with people. Jung-ho offered a polite greeting to Director Hyo. The person clarifies that their coach has just stepped outdoors. He visited the Usong boxing gym accompanied by one of his teammates to practice sparring. Hyo felt a wave of surprise wash over him, realizing that he had not received any phone call at all. The reality around him starts to crumble as he suddenly recalls that Kiju is the sole person left at his gym. Worried about what might happen, Rodas rushes ahead as fast as he can. A few moments pass before he stepped forward and reached for the door, preparing to go after them. The young man lay sprawled on the ground, his face mottled with dark bruises. The truth was that it was Soma all along. Someone enters the ring to assess how he is doing. Her father ascended the staircase until he arrived at the top. Moving toward the door, everyone began to chant Kiju's name. He soon realized that the man had already been knocked out. Kiju's eyes filled with tears as he finally admitted to himself that he was nothing more than a talentless scoundrel. Overwhelmed by disappointment, he lost all desire to continue boxing. The situation spelled trouble for the elderly man, as his wealth now faced jeopardy. This predicament had arisen solely due to Chel-sung's meddling, which had not been needed. Director Hyo rushed forward, determined not to allow him to leave. Driven by an overwhelming desire for wealth, he went so far as to toss his own daughter out of the ring. Later on, Soman tended to his injuries with care. Meanwhile, Kiju's coach recounted the impressive history of Kiju's rival, mentioning that the opponent's skills were so remarkable that even actual gangsters had tried to recruit him back in school. Kiju let out a painful groan. Soman wondered aloud how anyone could have injured his face so badly, considering they had both been protected by headgear. She persistently stressed how crucial it was for everyone to stay alert and never let their defenses down. The young man's body responded unexpectedly to her kind words, stirring feelings he hadn't anticipated. At the same time, the coach was busy spreading exaggerated tales, trying to make it look like their friend had been defeated by a famous opponent. Saman's gaze drifts downward, and he notices his own feet. The man stepped into the boxing ring, his feet clad in imitation Nikes that look like something a novice might wear. Given his clumsiness, no one was shocked when he ended up falling and injuring his knee. Taking full advantage of that straightforward reason, the coach seized his own foot, directing all responsibility toward just one aspect. Kiju wore running shoes into the boxing ring, a choice as questionable as blaming a gaming chair for losing a video game. Unlike video games, though, footwork is crucial in boxing. Master Oogway found it foolish that Kiju would choose running shoes instead of proper boxing footwear for his match. The young man stood there, completely speechless. Badi-saman emphasized that choosing the right footwear for every sport is essential, noting that boxing shoes play a vital role in a boxer's performance. Director Hyo identified his weakened lower body as the main reason for his loss, realizing that this disadvantage put him at risk from the very beginning. Soman carefully closes her first aid kit, making sure everything is securely packed away. He suggests that the boy should consider buying real boxing shoes if he truly values his love for the sport. She goes so far as to offer to make the decision for him. Once again, the boy let his impulses guide him, causing the situation to veer off in an unexpected direction. Kiju drifted into a daydream about his first date with his stunning crush, picturing the two of them picking out a pricey pair of shoes before things took an unexpected turn. They enjoyed spending pleasant moments in each other's company. Someone prepares to depart while still deep in sleep. He called out to her, wondering aloud about the best time for them to buy the shoes. Without warning, Coach Heyo reached out and placed a firm hand on his shoulder. A quiet snicker escaped as a sly smile spread across their face. It became clear that the man had already collected a supply of those shoes, all set for customers to buy from this very place. He behaved as if he gained nothing from the situation, showing no hint of personal benefit. Kiju, hoping for a real date with Soman, politely declines the offer, his refusal softened by a warm smile. As planned, Hyo contacted his daughter and asked her to make the choice for him. She examines her options carefully before making a selection. The elderly man gives the impression that, although the shoe is being offered for 99,000 won, its value on the open market would be as high as 150,000. Later that day, the events continue to unfold. At the store, the boy is hit hard by a harsh truth that leaves him feeling shaken. The price was set at just 68,000. This meant that, as usual, the man had tricked him and taken advantage of him once again. The next day arrived. He carried on with his training routine as he normally did. This time, Kiju moves with a newfound agility, his steps noticeably quicker and lighter. He noticed the difference himself after trying a few gentle jumps. Judging by his expression, it seemed that Selman was eager for a fight. Hyo observes that his daughter doesn't often participate in matches, yet she possesses remarkable athletic abilities. It was unexpected to discover that her challenger turned out to be a boy. He acted like a big shot, pretending to be chivalrous just because he didn't treat girls as harshly as others. Kiju's anger flared up as he witnessed someone publicly humiliating Seaman, standing up emotionally for her even though the insult wasn't directed at him. The battle continues without pause. Both fighters acknowledged each other with a brief greeting. The boy could hardly contain his excitement as he prepared to witness his crush step into the ring for the very first time. Soman raises his arms just in time, deflecting the initial blow aimed at him. Immediately after, he's knocked down by a swift jab. The opponent unleashed a series of powerful blows, striking her with intense force. Staggering backward, he drives his fist, shaped like a hook, toward her side. The man unleashed a relentless barrage of punches, striking with rapid intensity. It became a challenge for her to stay on pace. Kiju began to worry about her, silently wondering whether the gap in their physical abilities was truly that great. Coach Hayao encouraged him to pay close attention, explaining that he was about to witness an important technique. A sense of curiosity began to stir within them. He observes intently, curious to see what outrageous action she will attempt next. Salman's rival delivered a decisive strike, bringing the match to a close. Samin's father stands with unwavering determination, giving the impression that Samin is preparing to unleash a powerful domain expansion against her adversary. The blow misses completely when the girl suddenly vanishes, reappearing elsewhere in a flash, as if she teleported away in an instant. As he struggled to come to terms with his surprise, a clenched fist suddenly hurtled toward him. He angled himself to the side and propelled forward. He was launched high off the ground. Kiju stands frozen in disbelief, unable to process what he has just seen. His teacher watched him with a look of pride. The battle ended with just one blow. Salmon removed the headgear, allowing her hair to fall freely and enhancing her already striking appearance. Her father reprimanded her, believing she had been too aggressive during the match. Kiju realized that the powerful technique she had just demonstrated was precisely the skill he needed to master before his next competition. The modest student approaches the director, hoping to uncover the hidden knowledge he possesses. During those times, it felt like she would vanish without a trace, only to reappear unexpectedly. Seemingly appearing from thin air, someone delivered the finishing blow. The director contemplates whether indulging his curiosity deserves a reward. Kiju prepares himself, eager to begin learning. The core concept behind that method revolves around an element referred to as a step. When an opponent rushed forward with a powerful counter, the move was executed using the feet at just the right moment. At that exact instant, the person pulls their hand back just a knuckle's length, holding their position until the opponent's assault comes to an end. The character shifted their weight, nervously turning their feet back and forth. She needed to maintain her appearance as she prepared to launch her counterattack. The impact of the clash would send the other person soaring through the air. Realistically, something this outrageous could only take place in a manhwa, but at least the protagonist had a dependable skill to count on. Kiju came to understand where he had gone wrong during the sparring match. None of his swings managed to land a hit. His opponent repeatedly used identical moves, relying on the same technique over and over. Kiju's opponent skillfully evaded his attacks and responded with powerful blows in quick succession. Whenever Kiju attempted to land a punch, he ended up being the person who took the blow. The idea involves quickly moving back into position and delivering a powerful blow directly to the opponent's face. Before Director Hio has a chance to finish his explanation, Kiju makes up his mind to master the finishing move and incorporate it into his own skill set. Sensei Humpty Dumpty instructed the boy to continue his training, abruptly abandoning him and leaving the boy feeling stranded. Kiju called out, eager to learn what the technique was called. Director Hio refers to this method as the slip bang technique. Judging by what he could see, the place didn't seem to have an official name, leaving the boy puzzled. Kiju's coach absent-mindedly ran his fingers through his hair, clearly puzzled. He wondered why anyone would expect such a technique to come with a dramatic name. Kiju feels a lingering sense of discontent. He firmly sets his feet on the ground and adjusts their position, carefully copying the technique he observed. After a month of steady practice, he wrapped up the training session alongside his coach, feeling more confident in his abilities. Director Hio marvels at how skillfully the boy handles the technique. His hand trembled noticeably after stopping the force of the punch. Hio, breathing heavily and showing off his strong build, expressed his gratitude to his coach. There were just 3 days remaining before he would compete in his very first match. Hio encouraged his student to keep up his current state throughout the remainder of the class. Meanwhile, the boy planned to sneak off for a shower, knowing the elderly teacher would be distracted by a game of Candy Crush on his phone. In the following scene, Kiju relaxed beneath the soothing flow of the shower, unwinding after an intense training session. By chance, Soman made her way toward the shower room to tidy up, while her father remained completely absorbed in his games, too distracted to acknowledge her presence or say a word. Fortunately, the boy had already finished and was now picking out some clothes to wear. He picked out his clothes and dried himself with a towel. The door slowly swings open. Soman was taken by surprise and her cheeks flushed as she took in what she saw. Kiju stood in place, his well-built frame giving him the appearance of someone who could easily catch a girl's attention. Many might expect her to finally break under the pressure, yet something within her endures. Roman, with clear irritation, urges him to hurry up and finish. Moving with haste, she forcefully closed the door behind her. Instead of what was expected, it turned out to be Kiju who was standing outside, cheeks flushed with embarrassment like a shy child. It came as no surprise when Soman's thoughts drifted to the progress the boy had made. Papa, frustrated by his poor gaming skills, kept hitting his head in disappointment. He failed to realize that his daughter was standing directly before him. Soman shot a sharp look in his direction, blaming him for the uncomfortable situation she had just experienced. Feeling annoyed, she decided to make her father, who rarely helped out, handle all the cleaning as a form of payback. Later that night, Kiju found himself strolling alongside the person he liked. They noted that recently, they had been spending a lot of time together outside. The atmosphere between them grew tense and uncomfortable. The situation becomes even more uncomfortable as the two of them keep cutting each other off. Kiju waits patiently, giving her the opportunity to begin speaking. Soman took the opportunity to remind him to look after his health. He accepted her suggestion and found himself grateful for how comfortable the boxing shoes felt. Soman nodded in a mechanical, emotionless manner, signaling his reluctant agreement. The two of them continued their walk in silence once more. By chance, they spotted Kyung-tae and his group hanging out at the arcade, immersed in their games. The members of his gang were goofing off when, without warning, mushroom-shaped heads appeared. The person noticed the boy and offered him a warm greeting. Selman feels anxious, fearing that yet another commotion might break out in this isolated place. Kiju, showing his friendly nature, acknowledges the greeting with a polite response. Kyung-tae playfully mocked the pair for spontaneously deciding to go out together. The boy attempts to clarify that what they have planned goes beyond just an ordinary date. At the same time, French Fry and his group came up with a plan to challenge Kiju's abilities in gaming. He dares him to finally visit the arcade. The truth was that this man had never even laid a hand on an arcade machine, making this detail perhaps the least believable aspect of the entire story. Despite his reluctance, he finds himself suddenly thrown into the situation. Kyung-tae encourages him, urging that all he needs to do is throw a strong punch. Everyone eagerly urged Kiju to break a new record, impressed by the remarkable strength he displayed. The task presented itself as straightforward. Failure to surpass the record would signify Kyung-tae's triumph. In an effort to make things more interesting, they decide to introduce a wager. The bet itself isn't risky at all. Kyung-tae insisted that the loser would have to take on the responsibility of delivering lunch. As usual, Soman steps in, attempting to calm everyone down. However, her efforts are ignored, dismissed simply because she is a woman. Kiju approaches the machine with a sense of curiosity, eager to experience it for the very first time. Anticipation filled the air as they looked forward to discovering the outcome. Kiju adjusted his footing and prepared his arms, readying himself for action. The setting unfolds as everyone around mocks his awkward posture. Kyung-tae's actions convinced everyone that he had never handled a machine like this before. He showed no concern even if Kiju risked injuring his own wrist while trying. Soman expressed similar worries, urging him to take care because of his health issues. Kyung-tae, relying on his impressive logic skills, insisted that Kiju had no business entering a boxing match if he was already struggling against a machine. Furthermore, since everyone had witnessed Kiju withstand a direct stab from a knife without any issues, Kyung-tae saw no cause for concern. Rather than acting carelessly, Kiju makes a conscious effort to keep his wrist straight. Rather than regarding the machine as a simple pad, he approaches it as though he is confronting an adversary's face. Fueled by resolve, the man springs forward and strikes the pad with all his strength. The score meter rapidly calculates, its numbers climbing ever higher. The score finally settled at a disappointing 450, which looked especially small next to Kyungtae's impressive 920. The blonde troublemaker struggled to contain his laughter, looking foolish in front of everyone. His broken gang surrounded him, taunting and accusing him of pretending to go easy on purpose. The group looked forward to seeing if Kiju would fulfill the lunch duty as promised in their wager. Soman raised his voice at Kyungtae's followers, irritated that they had interfered without any real reason. In his mind, he decided that starting the blog was not a wise plan. Sompunk accepted the way they acted, without any concern. She even presents her with an opportunity to improve Kiju's unfortunate situation. Salmon had grown tired of their behavior and pleaded for them to go easier on him. The group only laughed, teasing her for being so intense over such a trivial wager. During his second try, Kiju found himself deep in contemplation, debating whether he ought to use this chance to experiment with his slip and bang technique. As soon as the pad bounces back to life, he watches as his challenger fires back, a fierce jab heading straight for his face. As if guided by an invisible force, his foot suddenly slid to the side. The character sidestepped to avoid the phantom boxer's swinging fist. The door slammed shut with a powerful, resounding thud as it swung back. The crash echoes with such intensity that it sends a wave of fear through everyone nearby. Kyungtae stood at the front, his loyal group gathered closely around him. The sight was so impressive that even Soman was left speechless. The force of his punch was impressive enough to draw the eyes of everyone nearby. Everyone present saw jets of steam bursting from the machine as the numbers rapidly climbed, reaching an unprecedented record. Kiju paid no attention to the score, his focus consumed by the unexpected success of his technique. Amazement flickered in his eyes as he realized how flawlessly his strategy had played out. The group of blonde troublemakers stared in disbelief, clutching their heads in astonishment. Meanwhile, Soman leaned over to examine the boy's wrist with concern. Fortunately, as he achieved a new personal best, he managed to avoid injuring himself this time. After losing the bet, Kyungtae and his friends found themselves completely disorganized and distressed. Trying to come across as a skilled negotiator, the man speaks kindly to their friend, emphasizing that the wager was meant to be light-hearted. Soman remained insistent, making it clear that she preferred having 2 slices of bread at once and behaving as if the man before her were merely there to serve her. After giving his shoulder a quick slap, she turned and strode off. He shrugged, confident that he could rely on his friends for support if needed. Soman reaches out and takes hold of Kiju's hand. Someone quickly drags him out of the chaos they created. At last, the awaited moment had arrived. The 10th Sports Boxing Championship was finally underway. Before the matches began, participants from various backgrounds stretched and prepared themselves for the upcoming competition inside the locker room reserved for athletes. Coach Heo and Soman stood together, their nerves evident as they awaited the moment Kiju would appear. He was running late, and now he had stopped responding to any calls. Soman kept calling, but his friend never answered, making it clear that something must have gone wrong. The director's mind filled with dread as he imagined the most troubling outcome. A staff member eventually approached to verify whether Kiju would be taking part in the event. Heo attempted to remain composed and recommended that everyone be patient, reassuring them that he was already heading over. Despite his uncertainty, the boy decides not to waste his time, believing that Kiju is unlikely to appear. Coach Heo pleaded with the man to be patient, expressing his faith in his student and his certainty that the student would show up shortly. The man shot Kiju a harsh glare, making it clear through his stern tone that Kiju would be immediately disqualified if he failed to appear within the next 10 minutes. The director's face is met with a door abruptly slammed in front of him, leaving him seething with anger. He instructed his daughter to look at her phone once more. Saman's mind raced with concern, imagining that something might have gone wrong for him during his journey. In truth, Kiju was already heading over, but an overwhelming traffic jam had brought his journey to a standstill. He encourages the driver to increase speed, but with so many people around, the driver finds it impossible to make any progress. He understood that he needed to be there before 3 in the afternoon. The driver informed Kiju that there were still 3 kilometers remaining to their destination and suggested that running would be a faster option for him. The boy jumped out of the cab without paying and took off at full speed. He was moving at his top speed. He hurried along, taking shortcuts and moving his feet rapidly. A crowd watched in awe as someone made an incredible jump. Kiju is confident that his strong stamina will allow him to arrive before the time runs out. The door swung open, revealing the entrance. Soman and Coach Heo believed that their son had finally come into his own. The situation revealed that the coordinator's frustration was growing, and he was rapidly running out of patience. The group attempted to calm the strict coordinator by assuring him once more that their fighter would arrive any minute. The coordinator paused in thought, reflecting on the hard work he had put into organizing the event. With so many fighters participating, he decided that marking an absent newcomer as forfeited wouldn't be much of an issue. The coach trailed behind Kiju as he exited, intent on ensuring Kiju would remain eligible for the competition. Just then, a weary voice echoed through the hallway. Kiju managed to reach the gymnasium just when he was most needed. He sprinted the final stretch, his face showing clear signs of fatigue. All eyes shifted toward the young man, taking in the sight of his obvious distress. It was clear that sprinting down a cramped hallway while already tired was far from the best idea. Coach Hio greeted his student warmly, his broad grin revealing his relief that the team would not have to abandon the match by default. The consequences of sprinting down the hallway became clear, just as had been warned. Now, with an ankle painfully twisted, the lesson was learned firsthand. Pain flashed across his face as an awkward step sent a sharp jolt through him. Kiju stumbled as he lost his footing, his body propelling forward uncontrollably until he tumbled ahead. He slid to a stop at the spot where the coordinator stood. They managed to get there as planned, though it came with significant sacrifices. For a brief instant, the coordinator considered feeling for the child's pulse to confirm that he remained alive. The unscrupulous coach hurriedly supported his fainted rookie, insisting to everyone around that the young player would never give up or surrender. Soman, however, felt concerned that Kiju may not be able to get back on his feet after such a harsh tumble. Mr. Coordinator shared the same worry, feeling uneasy about approving a child to compete while in such poor shape. Upon learning that he could be removed from the competition, a new determination stirred within Kiju. Despite the discomfort visible in his gaze, he convinced the coordinator that he was ready and able to enter the ring. Acting as the organizer for local amateur matches, the man with glasses was unaccustomed to encountering such an intense and determined look in a competitor's eyes. After considering the boy's potential, he finally approved his involvement. Now that the nerd was no longer a concern, Coach Heyo hurriedly helped his student prepare, knowing they were pressed for time and couldn't afford any delays. Just as the others were about to tease him, Kiju felt his stomach churn. The rush from running 3 kilometers had mixed up his breakfast, and now he was on the verge of losing it. Coach and his daughter searched frantically, hoping to come across a bucket or even just a plastic bag. A short time passed as Kiju's team finished cleaning up the mess and helped him prepare for the fight. With everything ready, Kiju stood at the edge of the ring, moments away from his debut match in the 10th Sports Boxing Championship. Inside the dugout, Coach Hio offered the boy a gentle reminder of all the tough practices he had endured to prepare for this very moment. They had put in more effort than anyone around them, believing that if destiny permitted, their dedication would eventually pay off. Although the coach's methods seemed questionable, his faith in the rookie remained genuine. On this day, he looked forward to witnessing an impressive performance. Despite the encouraging words, the attempt to motivate Kiju failed. He appeared utterly detached from reality, his eyes empty and lifeless, resembling a zombie as he moved about. Before he realized what was happening, he found himself summoned to the ring as it was time for the fighter's entrance. The gymnasium, mostly filled with vacant chairs rather than people, pulsed with a fierce energy. The few in attendance, drawn to amateur fights, seemed driven by a wild hunger for violence. Before his students stepped into the challenging world of boxing, the coach offered one last piece of wisdom. He reminded the young fighter that the upcoming adversary specialized in close-range combat and advised that their best strategy would be to keep moving and strike from afar. He nodded in agreement, though confusion still lingered on his face. As he entered the ring, a layer of sweat and dirt clung to his skin, and across from him, Kiju's legs trembled with nerves beyond his control. The challenger in the red corner stands tall and self-assured in front of him. According to red corner's calculations, the unsteady newcomer facing him would likely fall after a single solid blow. Meanwhile, Salmon felt concerned for Kiju. It was obvious to onlookers that his injured ankle had left his legs nearly useless. The situation became even more dire as heavy sweating quickly dehydrated him. The sprint he had done before the match had already exhausted much of his energy. Both fighters stood prepared as the referee summoned them to the center of the ring. The coaches, the spectators, and the referees. They observed intently, their anticipation and eagerness clear as they concentrated fully. Standing in the center of the ring, the referee reminded the fighters of the standard rules before the match began. Coach Hio began to question whether removing the young athlete from the competition had truly been the best decision. However, with the situation unfolding as it was, he realized that uncertainty could no longer be allowed. With the ringing of the bell, the match had officially begun. The sound of the bell rang out as the referees raised their voices together, marking the official start of the first round. The audience gathered for the novice match buzzed with energy and excitement. The bleachers overflowed with reckless gamblers, each one eager for a chance at a massive payout. The opening round began at a cautious pace. Kiju stayed firmly rooted at his mark as the competitor from the red corner observed him intently. He noticed that the child's breaths were still coming in quick, uneven bursts. Inside the ring, entering the first round already exhausted, almost guaranteed that the opponent would take control and make a mockery of the match. Despite the relentless barrage of sharp punches, Kiju managed to keep his defenses up, demonstrating remarkable resilience. Red corner launched a relentless barrage of sharp punches, leaving Kiju with no choice but to gradually retreat. Coach Hio raised his voice, urging his son to leave the corner immediately, knowing that allowing an infighter to force him back would only lead to trouble. The rookie registered the instructions from his coach, yet his gaze struggled to track the swift actions of his rival. The weight of the glove seemed almost unbearable, and his sight grew hazy, with everything splitting into double images. His dramatically painful entrance only intensified the situation, causing the overwhelming tension of the first match to consume him completely. The overwhelming tiredness weighed heavily on him, both in body and mind. He found himself unable to muster the strength to move his hands or feet. Naturally, this caused the opponent to focus on him as an easy target. A fresh wave of sharp, precise punches targeted the corners, pelting down relentlessly. Kiju's right hand lowered at last, exposing a wide opening in his guard. Red corner noticed the draw with sharp attention. Without hesitation, he surged ahead, eager to take advantage of the mistake. Annoyed by the previous taunts, he now unleashed the full strength of his powerful arms, preparing to deliver a genuine, forceful strike. If someone hadn't shouted at him, Biju would have simply remained in place, enduring everything quietly as usual. The sound of her voice alone had the power to pull him back from the depths of his trance. At that moment, memories of the coach's lessons resurfaced in his mind. He thought back to the instructions on handling an opponent's counterattack. To achieve this, a person must move backward by precisely the width of their own fist. The movement had become second nature to him, so his right foot glided forward without hesitation. As soon as the enemy's strike finishes just short of hitting its mark, a chance to reverse the situation suddenly appears. Now was the ideal moment to use Coach Hale's signature move, the slip bang. Kiju expertly swiveled his back foot, demonstrating remarkable skill. Energy surged through his entire body, lending new strength to his clenched fist. Coach Hale stood in stunned silence, his jaw slack with surprise. The crowd, filled with reckless gamblers, fell silent, their conversations about risky bets coming to an abrupt halt. Salman appeared as if she were observing an expert skillfully performing their craft. In the beginning, everything seemed promising, yet the truth soon proved to be less satisfying than expected. Kiju's punch narrowly failed to connect with the target's exposed face, missing by only a few centimeters. The chance for an impressive knockout slipped away unused. Biju found himself more bewildered than anyone else in the gym. Although he believed he had followed all the right steps, he still failed to meet his goal. The aspect that threw him off balance was the pivot of his back foot. He missed the mark by just the width of a single fist. Red corner regained composure swiftly after narrowly avoiding a powerful strike. As he quickly moved aside, his mind raced to come up with an answer. The blow that nearly knocked him down was intimidating, but such danger was part of the sport. Boxers had to seize every opportunity available. With Kiju frozen in place, his head became an easy target for a powerful strike. The opponent unleashed a powerful uppercut that hurled him through the air. The audience erupted with excitement, their cheers filling the arena as an uppercut knockout delivered an unmatched thrill. Kiju managed to steady himself just in time, absorbing the force of the brutal uppercut as his next feat of the day. At this moment, the coach's faith began to grow stronger. Observers in the stands thought Kiju had just taken a devastating blow from Saitama. At the moment Coach Hayao began to have faith, his confidence quickly fell apart. If the boy hadn't managed to grab the ropes in time, he would have been in serious trouble. Despite everything, landing the uppercut filled Red corner with newfound confidence, encouraging him to extend his advantage in the match. Kiju managed to stay on his feet, yet it was clear he was quickly running out of strength. Allowing events to unfold without resistance might have spared the Red corner some suffering, but his decision to fight back meant he was now faced with even greater agony. As the battle continued to unfold, a figure moved with unwavering confidence through the dugout. Wang Yu, known for his odd behavior, was there. Instead of being surrounded by coaches, he now had a group of followers who boosted his confidence. Those same supporters were the ones who constantly provoked Kiju. Wang Yu learned through Kyung-tae that the youngster had surpassed the previous high score on the punching machine. Although Kyung-tae could be difficult to get along with, no one could deny his physical strength. As Wang Yu and his subordinates stepped into the gymnasium, a wave of enthusiastic cheers from the crowd greeted them while two fighters fiercely battled in the center ring. Just moments before, they had been boldly mocking Kiju without hesitation. Witnessing him fight with the skill of a seasoned expert left everyone speechless. Kyung-tae, unable to hide his astonishment, was the first to react. He found the courage to raise his voice only when Kiju was clearly losing and taking hit after hit. Honestly, the situation could only be described as a one-sided thrashing. The newcomer struggled to block the relentless flurry of punches, finding it harder with each forceful strike. Coach Hyo raised his voice again, instructing his son to avoid moving toward the corner. It was already beyond the point of turning back. The fighter in the red corner now controlled the pace, held the dominant position, and still had plenty of energy left. Kiju attempted to step ahead, but lost his balance when his own sweat made the canvas beneath him slick. Losing his balance, he lurched ahead and tightly gripped his opponent in an unplanned move. Red Corner's frustration became obvious as his earlier energy faded. The clinch dragged on longer than allowed, prompting the referee to intervene and separate the fighters. When they finally parted ways, Kiju paused to steady himself, drawing in a long breath. His outward appearance was disheveled, but his inner turmoil was even more intense. His eyes struggled to focus on the referee, everything blurring into two, while the sounds around him faded until he could hardly make out a single word. He could only discern the words that meant it was time to start the boxing match. As in previous matches, he retreated into a tight defensive stance, bracing himself as his rival aggressively advanced and set a fast tempo. The Turtle's defense quickly failed as his arms fell aside, leaving him exposed to a swift punch that landed perfectly. A solid combination of punches from both the left and right sent waves through his unsteady reality, leaving him even more disoriented. The fighter from the red corner delivered another uppercut, seamlessly extending the combination. Kiju's unguarded chin made him an easy target for the blow. Soman looked over at her father, signaling that it was time to surrender by tossing in the towel, since their son's match was over. Rather than surrendering, Coach Hayo decided he would rather see the battle through to the end. He continued to believe that the child could possess something extraordinary. Kiju lacked the necessary skills at this point, but fortune seemed to be on his side. It was often observed that someone who was intoxicated tended to sustain fewer injuries in a car crash compared to someone who was sober. The reason was that their muscles stayed relaxed, so their body didn't stiffen when they were struck. Because of this, they are able to withstand accidents more effectively than others. This is the reason some people might think it's okay to drink and drive, though that's only a joke and should never be attempted in reality. At this moment, Kiju Lee resembles someone who, like a reckless drunk, has managed to get into a minor mishap. Pushed to his absolute limits, he transformed into someone who could absorb endless blows without faltering. In this dazed and weary condition, his actions were driven solely by instinct. Stepping into the ring against him felt as if one were fighting an unstoppable, unfeeling opponent, almost like taking on a zombie. The only thing driving him to push through the pain was the desire to win and impress Soman. He refused to let himself appear weak in front of everyone near the hose. Most people might assume that a tough zombie would pose little challenge to an experienced fighter, but that assumption would prove completely false. The zombie moved with the sharp reflexes and fundamental skills expected of a seasoned professional. At this stage, his movements followed the rhythm of dodging and weaving, instinctively guiding him to avoid incoming attacks. Although he risked taking a few blows, quick maneuvers like slipping and swaying allowed him to glide effortlessly, almost as fluidly as water. Should he trust his gut feelings, his streak of beginner's luck could carry him all the way to the finish. Someone had decided to place all of their faith in luck from that moment on. At the same time, Wang Yu and his followers fell silent, their attention completely captured by the ongoing battle. For the first time since he had failed to land a hit, Kiju launched another punch. Despite his efforts, he made the same error again and missed the mark by only a couple of centimeters. Because his back foot positioning was off, Slit Bang continued to elude him no matter how hard he tried. Internally, he was overwhelmed with anxiety, tears nearly escaping as fear took hold. The moment unfolding before him felt eerily similar to the disastrous attempt at his initial punch. Red Corner forced him backward until his body pressed against the ropes. The scene demonstrated the impressive skills of an infighter. Following a powerful blow to the body, the relentless barrage of attacks left their body bent sharply, crumpling under the force much like an omelet being folded over. Because he regained his senses just in time, the enemy's punch skimmed past his head without making contact. Kiju's body surged ahead on reflex, forcing all his weight onto his wounded foot. An audible crack signaled the moment his legs could no longer support him, collapsing beneath him. The entire sequence unfolded in a split second. Several mishaps needed to occur perfectly for everything to work out. For the first time during the match, Kiju's fists finally landed a hit on his rival, delivering a strike that rattled both bodies and minds. Although he had been overpowered and outmatched since the beginning, fortune, along with a bit of divine intervention and inspiration from his favorite anime, seemed to be guiding him now. Despite his imperfections, he managed to end the match by using Coach Hio's powerful slip bang technique. Wang Yu and his followers stood frozen in shock as the truth dawned on them. They had chosen the worst possible person to provoke. The audience buzzed with excitement, their enthusiasm filling the arena. Witnessing a battle of this caliber was an uncommon thrill for everyone present. At last, the referee entered the scene to reveal the outcome. Soman stood frozen in place, her jaw dropping open in astonishment as she watched. The man in the red corner, having lost consciousness, was officially pronounced knocked out. Kiju maintained his position while the sound of applause and excitement filled the indoor gymnasium. Coach Hio had never imagined he would win another game. Gradually, Kiju began to understand the events that had just taken place. The technique he had practiced paid off, and as he lifted his hands, the crowd's applause grew louder. His debut match ended with his very first victory. Kyung-tae and his friend were overwhelmed with fear as they realized the boy they had bullied had just managed to defeat a trained fighter in an honest competition. Wang Yu appeared satisfied with how things had turned out. He felt anxious that Kiju might not have the opportunity to retaliate in the ring. The official proclamation revealed that Lee Kiju from the blue corner had won, securing a knockout victory in the very first round. When he finally stepped out of the ring, Coach Hio was overcome with happiness, tears streaming down his face as he cried with joy. He surveyed the crowd, his gaze moving carefully over each face. His gaze shifted toward a man in the stands who appeared to be attempting to gather aura. He was the same person the young man practiced with whenever the gym was empty. Afterward, the man fixed him with a look so serious it was hard to put into words. The person who had been practicing sparring glanced back briefly before walking away. The announcer informed the crowd that the upcoming match would feature Gang De Aku, known for his sparring skills, going up against Choi Wong-yu, who had a reputation for being eccentric. Because there were many battles scheduled, the following match began immediately. The next contestant stepped forward as the announcer briefly introduced them, wasting no time on formalities. Wang Yu's followers edged nearer to the corner, certain that their champion would come out on top in this mess. In the red corner, his supporters lifted his spirits, entrusting all their hopes to his strength. Choi Wong-yu felt a flush of embarrassment rise within him as the crowd erupted into cheers. As the challenger stepped out from the blue corner dugout, the crowd of goons instantly fell silent. Though none of them wanted to acknowledge it, they all noticed how intimidating and powerful he appeared. At that instant, Wang Yu tuned out the ongoing instructions from his coaches. His gaze snapped to his rival, sharp and focused, reminiscent of a predator zeroing in on its prey. He observed Gang Diog performing a series of brisk exercises to get his hands ready. The man appeared completely at ease, showing no sign of anxiety. His demeanor remained steady and composed, giving off the impression of someone experienced in dangerous situations. Wang Yu, in contrast, appeared as though he was about to do something truly terrible. Both combatants received authorization to step inside. As the starting bell rang out, the referee signaled for the first round to begin. Surprisingly, the two did not launch into a fight immediately. Instead, they kept a safe gap between them, locking eyes in silent anticipation. Wang Yu felt a hint of irritation toward his current opponent, realizing that the challenger he had hoped to face had already finished his match moments earlier. Inside Lee Kiju's dugout, the coach carefully considered the situation and ultimately decided that forfeiting the upcoming game was the best course of action. Salmon felt a wave of confusion. Earlier, it had been her father who insisted that Kiju should stay in the ring. Coach Hayo acknowledges that their achievements today are already quite remarkable. At this moment, Kiju isn't well enough to return to the field. Should he choose to halt now, he would secure honor without risking additional harm to himself. He may receive a certificate bearing the signature of the president of the Boxing Association. Orfit had the potential to secure an automatic second-place finish for the team, which was considered quite an impressive outcome. Salmon felt embarrassed when she realized that her father was only hoping to get a certificate and settle for second place. Despite it being understandable, the gym had not earned any certificates, trophies, or belts throughout the entire past year. They also realized just how much luck had influenced the previous game. Considering this, they thought it might be wiser to quit while they were still winning instead of risking a painful defeat. Many wondered whether sheer luck alone could propel a person to win a championship. The memory of the child's instinct-driven fighting style came to mind. Coach Hio's eyes landed on a creature deep in sleep, and for a brief moment he pondered what might happen if it awoke. However, the thought was quickly set aside. Before the coaches had a chance to decide, Kiju regained consciousness and made his own choice, determined at committing himself. He insisted that everyone would compete, refusing to let anyone forfeit. His determination to participate in the finals remained firm, no matter what obstacles arose. The coach offered a gentle smile, hoping to ease the tension, and subtly encouraged the young athlete not to overexert himself during his initial competition. In reaction, Kiju abruptly rose to his feet, moved with a quiet, almost invisible presence, fading into the distance as if she were never really there. He had already spent too much time attempting to get better, and now his attention shifted eagerly to the ongoing match happening on the main stage. Since the initial round had only recently begun, there was still a good chance for them to catch it in time. Inside the main event hall, an unusually quiet crowd focused all their attention on the unfolding scene, the usual excitement replaced by a tense silence. Wang Yu's subordinate stood in stunned silence while the referee's voice echoed through the arena, counting all the way to 10. As anticipation filled the room, everyone watched in silence while the number steadily increased. Kiju appeared just as the countdown was about to finish. Inside the ring, Gang Dioku loomed above his fallen rival, his expression emotionless as he gazed down at the defeated fighter. When the referee completed the 10 count, Wang Yu remained motionless on the mat, showing no signs of response. The crowd seemed to be thoroughly enjoying the thrilling series of intense fights unfolding before them. Before leaving the ring, Dioku paused to inspect his work one last time. The once arrogant stranger appeared bruised and defeated, clearly overwhelmed by the fight's merciless imbalance. As Diogu took off his gloves, his coach, filled with concern, cautioned him to be gentle with the beginners. The boy explained that he needed to land a few solid hits because he disliked the other person. The team had delivered an impressive performance, and with the event now over, they finally had a chance to relax and regain their strength. As the player headed back toward the dugout, Diako encountered the man who had also achieved a knockout earlier that day. Coach attempted to explain the strengths and weaknesses of Dioku's next inexperienced rival, but Dioku paid no attention to the elderly man's words. He walked toward Kiju, his steps full of confidence. Kiju swallowed hard, the sound escaping him before he could stop it. He wondered anxiously if this reaction meant he was losing some of his aura. Dioku, close enough to be heard, confidently announced his intentions for a battle. He eagerly anticipated facing them in their first official match since their earlier practice bout. He rested his hand on the younger boy's shoulder with a heavy, almost intimidating gesture that only older brothers seemed to master. Kiju hesitated, his determination to step into the ring beginning to falter. Solomon finally managed to reach him after a hurried chase. The battle had already come to an end. Outside the dugout, she noticed her son trembling, overwhelmed by a mix of different feelings. She softly placed her hand on his back, offering a comforting touch, and he let out a startled gasp. She reassures him that he doesn't have to force himself. No matter what comes after this moment, he has already shown more than anyone expected. Rather than letting discouragement take over before the competition began, Kiju gathered his courage and determination, preparing himself to face the finals with renewed resolve. None of the negativity seemed to affect him. His only focus was on claiming the championship and securing the victory. Suddenly, his headgear was back in place. His feet pressed firmly against the mat of the ring. The audience, aware that both competitors possessed powerful punches, eagerly anticipated another knockout. In the end, upon reflection, the answer became clear. Getting punched and throwing punches felt almost the same as the constant struggles he faced every single day. In stark contrast to the gloomy days before, the ring now shines with a brilliant light and emits a noise that is hard to ignore. The room buzzed with an intense heat that was completely new to him, while a striking girl stood by the ring, shouting words of encouragement just for him. Boxing stood apart from other sports for several unique reasons. At its core, it was nothing more than a series of brutal and sorrowful brawls. Despite everything, Kiju Lee sensed an odd tremor stirring within himself. He noticed that, with the pain in his foot gone, he felt surprisingly comfortable. Rather than retreating defensively, he launched into the confrontation with bold aggression.